Hey guys, let's get more news about Dallas, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. NFL rumors: Cowboys' only franchise tag candidate has a $23 million problem. It seems like Micah Parsons wants the Dallas Cowboys to improve their roster. At the same time, he awaits a big payday that would make it more difficult. Also, the Cowboys have another issue with their only franchise tag candidate having a $23 million problem. Osa Odighizuwa appears to be the Cowboys' option for a franchise tag. But that contract probably wouldn't work, according to ESPN.com. At a projected cost of more than $23 million against the cap, that's just too pricey, Todd Archer wrote. That does not mean the Cowboys won't make a bid to re-sign him before free agency begins. With new defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus, the under tackle, Odighizuwa's position, is vital. He posted career highs in sacks, 4.5, and pressures, 54, last season and is the type of player the Cowboys want to build with: a third-round draft pick, immediate starter, over-the-top worker and excellent in the locker room. Cowboys DT Osa Odighizuwa could leave in free agency. The problem for the Cowboys may be that another team values Odighizuwa more than the Cowboys are willing to pay for a player who doesn't rise to the level of Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, or Parsons. Still, Odighizuwa is one of the players that Cowboys Executive Vice President Stephen Jones wants to keep in town, along with running back Rico Dowdle, defensive end Chauncey Golston, and cornerback Jordan Lewis, according to a post on X by John Machota. We want them back. They've shown that they are Dallas Cowboys football players. They're certainly guys we want to have back. It's just making all the calculus work when it comes to fitting everybody under the salary cap. Odighizuwa said last year he simply tries to do his job and not worry about money going here or there, according to athlonsports.com. I don't really control who gets paid, all I can do is control how I play, Odighizuwa said. And then hopefully that's going to result in what I want, which would be a second deal with Dallas. I'm just going to control what I can control in that regard. 2025 NFL free agency: Derek Carr, Tyler Lockett among 21 notable cut candidates on NFC teams. The frenzy of free agency is most often focused around the players signing in new spots, but some of the most impactful moves each year are the cuts teams make in the pursuit of coveted cap space. In anticipation, here are a handful of the biggest names on cut watch in the NFC heading into the early weeks of the offseason. Click here for the AFC rundown. Note: all salary cap and contract numbers are from over the cap as of February 17. The goal for San Francisco will likely be to trade former All-Pro wideout Deebo Samuel, but if the Niners can't find the right suitor or the right return, he might be a post-June 1 cut candidate instead. Samuel had a down year in 2024, totaling just 806 scrimmage yards and 4 touchdowns, dropping 5 passes, per Pro Football Focus, fumbling twice and even struggling as a rusher, putting up a career-low 3.2 yards per carry. The Niners committed to Brandon Aiyuk as their WR1 last offseason while entertaining trade discussions for Samuel and eventually restructuring his contract. If another offensive mind has interest in Samuel's unique skill set, perhaps general manager John Lynch can net a mid-round pick for the former star. But if the market doesn't look promising, he might simply be released for the $5.1 million in cap savings that the post-June 1 designation would create. Marshawn Lattimore is a 4-time Pro Bowl cornerback, but those 4 Pro Bowl seasons all came between 2017 and 2021. Since 2022, he's missed 25 games with a variety of injuries. Washington traded for him at the 2024 deadline, sending a package of picks but only getting 2 regular season games and the 3 playoff contests out of him. And notably, he was awful in the postseason, earning a horrific 29.6 coverage grade from PFF and allowing 10 catches for 172 yards and a 136.6 passer rating on 14 targets. With a release, his entire $18 million cap hit would become savings in 2025, and while the Commanders are in superb shape, projected to be $75 million under the cap, they might rather spend those millions elsewhere as they seek to build around Jayden Daniels and become a lasting powerhouse in the NFC. It would be a bit surprising to trade for a player of Lattimore's career caliber and then cut him a few months later, but it might make too much sense, given all the variables. Outside of a long snapper or two, no player under contract for 2025 has played more seasons on their current team than Cameron Jordan, who is headed for his 15th season in New Orleans. He's a future Hall of Famer and arguably the current face of the franchise, so it sounds extreme to suggest he will be cut. But he also carries a $20.1 million cap hit, $11 million of which the Saints could translate into savings if they designated him as a post-June 1 release. Plus, unfortunately, he's 35 years old and on the decline. He logged 6 total sacks over the last 2 seasons, 34 starts, combined and played just 48% of the Saints' defensive snaps in 2024. For context, Jordan had more than 6 sacks in each of the previous 11 seasons. If he's willing to reduce his pay to finish his career in the Bayou, maybe he remains on the roster, but otherwise, it might be time to sunset his tenure with the Saints. We arrive at the second of 3 Saints players on this list. New Orleans' front office is facing a complicated situation, currently projected to be $54.1 million over the cap in 2025. That's the worst projected overage in the NFL. Derek Carr, who has ranked 14th on average in passer rating over the past 5 seasons, is probably a middle-of-the-pack starting quarterback, but his $51.5 million cap hit in 2025 is the 4th highest at the position. The complications stem from the variety of options the Saints have with the 33-year-old QB. Cutting him straight up would leave the team with $50.1 million in dead money and save just $1.3 million against the cap doesn't seem viable. Designating him as a post-June 1 cut nets $30 million in savings, with only $21.5 million in dead money, which is more manageable. Then again, each team can only give that designation to 2 players per year, and, like Carr, the Saints carrying the next highest cap charges, Cameron Jordan and Taysom Hill, would have to be designated post-June 1 cuts to generate meaningful savings in 2025. Trading Carr before June 1 would snag the team $11.3 million in cap savings and potentially a slight return in draft picks, if the Saints can find a suitor. Or they could restructure his contract and try another year with him, considering he was actually pretty decent when healthy in 2024, 15 to 5 TD to INT ratio, 101.0 passer rating. It's hard to know which path they'll take, but either Carr or his money will likely be moved this offseason. Seattle is currently projected to be $13.5 million over the cap, the 4th worst mark in the league. For a 5-year stretch, 2018 through 2022, Tyler Lockett was one of the most underrated receivers around, but since 2023, the veteran has averaged just 747 yards and 4 touchdowns per season. With the 2024 breakout of Jackson Smith-Njigba and the presence of DK Metcalf, it would seem that the 32-year-old Lockett's declining services are no longer needed, especially given his monster cap figure, $30.9 million, in 2025. The Seahawks would save $17 million by releasing him, and while they'd eat nearly $14 million in dead money, it's still worth it, considering the cost-to-production valuation at this point in Lockett's career. I could see him signing elsewhere as a crafty complement to a young stud WR1, but it will likely have to be at a heavily reduced price point. At this moment, it looks as if the Falcons will be in bad cap shape, projected to sit $11.1 million in the red, and they'll need to make quite a few moves to bring that figure back in line. One possibility, releasing one of these 2 starting defensive linemen. The 2 had relatively similar production in 2024, though Grady Jarrett held the edge over David Onyemata in most categories. Then again, Jarrett's release would buy more than $16 million in cap savings, while releasing Onyemata would net just $8.1 million in savings and saddle Atlanta with $8.9 million in dead money. Whether to cut Jarrett or Onyemata will come down to a question of value and expectation for the Falcons, but at least one is likely to be gone this spring. The Rams' cap situation depends quite a bit on what happens with Matthew Stafford, whose cap figure sits at $49.7 million for 2025, but whether the QB moves on or agrees to a restructured deal, the team is not in especially dire straits financially. If LA does make significant cuts, Jonah Jackson would likely be in consideration. The former Pro Bowl guard signed a 3-year, $51 million contract with the team last March and was the starting center for Week 1, but he fractured his scapula in Week 2, had a poor showing in his Week 10 return and was inactive for the rest of the relevant games of the season. As a standard release, Jackson would eat up $11.3 million in dead money, saving just $3.3 million in 2025, but if he's designated as a post-June 1 cut, the team would net $9 million in savings. Giants named as projected suitor for Cowboys' potential $63 million free agent. It's not uncommon for division rivals to target one another's free agents in March, and the New York Giants would be a great fit. Dallas Cowboys UFA defensive lineman Osa Odighizuwa in 2025 according to the 33rd team's Marcus Mosher. After first estimating that Odighizuwa would earn a 3-year, $63 million contract, $21 million per year, in NFL free agency, Mosher linked the Giants, Cincinnati Bengals and Washington Commanders as projected suitors. This is not a particularly deep class when it comes to interior defensive linemen, but there are 2 top-end talents who will get massive deals, Mosher wrote. The first is Osa Odighizuwa, a 4-year starter for the Dallas Cowboys after being selected in the 3rd round of the 2021 NFL Draft. Odighizuwa led all interior defenders in quarterback hits this season and is a force as a pass rusher despite less than stellar sack totals, the NFL analyst went on. He is on the smaller side for a defensive tackle, but teams prioritizing pass rush ability and durability will fall in love with Odighizuwa this offseason. Finally, Mosher added that you can expect Odighizuwa to make at least $20 million per season. Reasoning: given the lack of depth at defensive tackle in free agency, it wouldn't be a surprise if he earned significantly more. We saw Christian Wilkins sign a deal worth upwards of $27 million last year, and Odighizuwa is younger and far more durable. Cowboys Osa Odighizuwa would give Giants great 1-2 punch alongside Dexter Lawrence. One of the Giants' strengths is their defensive front, but there was one weak spot that limited this unit's impact in 2024, and that was the interior defensive line role next to Dexter Lawrence. Odighizuwa would take over for veteran Rakeem Nunez-Roches, among others, in filling this position, which would then set up Big Blue with one of the most ferocious defensive lines in football. On most passing downs, when the Giants operate out of a 2-4-5 formation, they'd flaunt OLB Brian Burns, Lawrence, Odighizuwa, and OLB Kayvon Thibodeaux with inside linebackers Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden just behind the front 4. At that point, the starting defense would just need another cornerback and another safety. Assuming Jason Pinnock doesn't re-sign in free agency. It would all start up front for the Giants though. According to Pro Football Focus, Odighizuwa recorded the 4th best pass rush win rate, 15.1%, in football last season among interior defensive linemen playing a minimum 50% of snaps. For reference, Lawrence finished at a 12.5% pass rush win rate before his injury. Needless to say, opposing offensive lines would have to seriously think twice about doubling up Lawrence and Burns with Odighizuwa on the field, and if they do, the Cowboys' free agent would get plenty of one-on-one matchups himself, as would Thibodeaux. While expensive, an acquisition like this might just be the missing piece that this NYG defense has been looking for. Giants could cut Rakeem Nunez-Roches to free up more cap space for his replacement. The Giants are in a pretty decent spot financially, although it would be helpful to free up a little bit more cap space ahead of free agency. One easy way to do so, especially if general manager Joe Schoen is pursuing an upgrade on the defensive line, would be to release Nunez Roches. Bleacher Report listed Nunez Roches as one of the Giants' most likely cap casualties on January 20. Writing, Raheem Nunez Roches is a fine player. However, if the Giants get the idea that they want to carve out more cap space, he's a player they are going to discuss. The Giants can create $3.6 million by releasing the veteran. Nunez Roches is going to be 32 next season, and he's only been a rotational run stuffer. They are likely better off pocketing their cap savings and giving his snaps to a younger player who could be part of a rebuilding defense. Coupled with a cheap run stuffer addition in free agency or the draft, a scenario where the Giants sign Odigizua and cut Nunez Roches would be an absolute home run for this regime. Yes, Big Blue has needs elsewhere, but sometimes it is more impactful to turn a solid strength into an elite weapon. And are you a fan? What do you think of Osa Odigizua leaving? Leave your opinion in the comments.